Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for stopping by once again. It's been a long time since many of you have seen me. Unfortunately, it was not for the good reasons. I came down with a very severe infection, and it got complicated. It really knocked me for a loop, but it made my life absolutely miserable. It's a urinary tract infection. You people, both men and women, certainly in my age group, but even much younger groups, understand what I'm talking about. These are not fun, and this one was particularly bad. And it was bad. And I had moments when I didn't know what the future held. I'm serious. I didn't. I don't want to ever go through it again. But I will tell you this: you're looking at somebody who, I will be 79 in just a few days, and then starting my 80th year, and all that lifetime up until now, I had never spent a single night in a hospital. Not everybody can say that. Well, now I've spent a whole bunch of them. I have been in more than one hospital. I have really been around the system here, the health system. I've been in the public hospitals, which are open to Social Security people. I've been in the private, very expensive hospitals. I've been in hospitals. I've discovered there's several levels of hospital that are perfectly good places, but they're smaller. They have emergency rooms, but they have specialists on call, but they only have a few physicians on duty all the time. That's all they need. They have some rooms and so forth, and the level of surgery they do will depend on each one of them. There are laboratories here that are called clinics and laboratories that really provide a lot more assistance than one expects. It's quite a system, and it's really took some understanding. I was in such bad shape, being completely taken by surprise by the severity of the infections that I faced. I was really dependent on my family, so to speak, and those are Panamanians here who took care of me. And I tell you, if it hadn't been for them, I don't know, it would have been very difficult because of the exceptional nature of my circumstances and the unexpected nature of them. But they rallied. People in the U.S. helped to see to it that I had the resources necessary to get through it, and I got through it. And I am pleased to say that the operation that finally led to the end, has been very successful and is over. And thank God it's over. I'll say to the people out there who have spent much longer time than the 10 weeks or so that I spent in this situation, and who have suffered far more pain, and many times had to face the possibility that they weren't going to be there the next day. Honestly, you have no idea how much I admire you and appreciate what you've had to put up with. Although my situation, although it scared the hell out of me, did not in any way come close to what you have had to go through. And for that reason, I salute you. And I want you to know that now that I have a taste of that, as I say, I always admire people who put up with severe situations. But to have had to face even a small one comparatively, it just makes it all the more real. So God bless you and thank you. I thinking of you and so forth helped me in its own way, knowing that I was surrounded by people who had gotten through worse. So I could do it too, and I did. Now, in the process of all this, I've come out of it thinking I need to do things differently. I had been thinking that way last year, and I was building up toward that. And then one thing led to another, and here I was, utterly and completely focused on myself and just getting through this period. At the time, I was expecting to shift and change a number of things. Now, the first thing I want to say right off the bat, this YouTube channel remains, hopefully to be visited a little more often than the last couple months. And The retirement website, well, it needs help, but it needs to be changed in some respects. But the newsletter will still be brought out from there. It will still be announced from here. We're going to do everything the way that it has gone on. You're used to my being erratic because this is a completely free service, and it has been for 20 years. Even, as I pointed out many times, even the ads that YouTube runs goes to them. The ad money does not go to me. I refuse to accept it because I know how it can distort the actual operation of a website, no matter what the website, even if it's a nonprofit website. And so I won't have anything to do with it. So they have the small print in the contract that allows them to run the ads if they see fit, and they do. So they make the money. What little there may be in it, they're welcome to it. I get to be who I am, and I have been that way for all these years. I'm going to retain that exact same approach here. But beyond that, I have been, oh gosh, guys, I've been a geopolitical analyst a long time, decades, before that became a clever thing to say. And I get really tired of it today. It's being overused by a lot of people who aren't even analysts, much less geopolitical analysts. And yet, some of them are very serious and they do good work. But there's a tendency, a real one, to predict. And I reject that. You know that. You know I do not believe that you can predict the future with any specific, well, to be honest, to know in advance what's going to happen. I mean, if you did, you'd be gone, wouldn't you? Well, you're not. So none of us are. But if we can leave that impression and we get it right, well, there's money in it that won't stop pouring. Even if they're wrong 6 times following that, they'll live off that for quite a while. We have a lot of that going on now. I listen to them, I absolutely do, and there are many that are fine. I mean, I work 7 days a week. I deal with, I have 3 browsers up at any point in time. I've got anywhere from 80 to 120 web pages up there on each browser. I have a lot of stuff, and I do a terrific amount of research, and I have been doing that all my life. And it is just who I am. It's part of who I am. And I have been churning out analyses, and some of them would be considered geopolitical for sure, for a long time. And I have published in a number of locations, from Barron's, a financial publication, to Business Insider back when it first came out. They used to publish my work and sell it, basically. They syndicated it to other publications. I mean, lots of things like that. And I published for a lot of different groups and been interviewed all over the place. And I sort of put all that behind me and went on to Panama and have focused here on being supportive of this country and its growth. But I came out of this illness recently. And you know something? I finally had a chance after all these years I had to be completely separate from the global situation. And then I was suddenly back into it and a chance to see it all over again. What's going on? This is insane. What's wrong with these people? They're just repeating themselves over and over and over again. I'm sorry, but I was shocked at how I shouldn't have been. I should have realized. I've been watching it for a long time. I thought, this is dumb. There are ways to deal with this. So I am looking at ways to help people deal with it that get out of politics and stay away from politics and stay away from politicians. Politics is poison to everything. That's my attitude. It's not going to come in here Panama way because we have nothing political to discuss. The Panamanians will elect their own government and they will proceed to prepare a plan, as they do when a new administration comes in, and do their best. And I will not get involved politically. But I can't avoid the greater picture. And this will not be just simply directed toward people here, of course. It will be directed beyond that. It's not going to be easy. I'm not wealthy, I've never been wealthy. So I don't have the money to do everything that I'd like to do. And this will have to take a different road, and it will be a subscription basis, and there'll be a free subscription if you're interested in it. But there will also be paid subscription levels too. And I'll just let you know. But that's coming along fairly soon. I have a lot of work to do on that, and believe me, I'm way behind on it. But it will get done one way or another. And I will be back and let you know a little more about that. But first thing I wanted to assure you is that you're still going to get the same basic news coverage and interpretation and analysis that I have provided for years here. It will just keep on coming. And just as politics is not allowed in this site, we are purposefully going to look at the future, at the other project, in ways that are constructive that will help us get through what's coming down the road without having to talk politics. We have to get away from it. We have to get around it, over it, under, whatever. It comes and it goes. And right now, when politicians take over and everything gets politicized, it's a very common thing to happen at one stage, and that's when people are afraid. And I've been watching this going on, and I'll talk more about it and this other effort. But I see the so-called leaders and wannabe leaders of the 20th century fly off. I just struggle to be relevant today. And they spend most of their time arguing about the past, arguing about things they've already argued about 1,000 times before. And that is a clear sign, folks, of fear. They don't know what to do or what to say. They just want to be comfortable again. And this is the 21st century, and we're a quarter of the way into it, and it's not stopping to change. We have a lot more coming, and the next few years we'll see a great deal. I think this is one of the most exciting and positive times in human history to be alive, perhaps the single most important, and I'll explain that too. But the important thing is not all coming up roses. There will be challenges, there will be difficulties. I'm not, Mr. Sunshine here. I'm trying to be an analyst, and that doesn't allow for that. Emotion has to go off to one side. You have to look at things in practical terms. So I'm going to be more specific and more direct in what I'm talking about here, and of course in the other effort where it will be reasonable to do that. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Other than that, I'm going to show you what's going on here. Last year, 2023, we had a month in November, we had roughly 100,000 very civilized, very well organized, and young people who demonstrated peacefully. And the whole thing was done very well. Nobody got killed. The police didn't open, guns and start shooting, open fire on demonstrators, as has happened in so many Latin American countries. We're different. I've said it 100 times. Many people consider us boring, and some people criticize us for not being as angry as they are and as willing to scream and shout and swear and, well, tough luck, guys. We aren't that way. Now, you would have expected that in November, and for good reason, that the economy would have tanked. It would have come down fairly sharp, right? It didn't tank, but it would drop off severely, because that whole month was just, transportation was extraordinarily difficult. Everything seemed to go wrong. And the word was at the time, this is going to be terrible for the year. It's going to bring down the growth rate, and it could ruin December and Christmas and everything else. And just prior to the end of November, this all came to an end, as most people know. And a copper mine was closed down, and that issue is closed with it. What happened in December? Well, if you've been around for a while, I follow the monthly indicator of economic activity. It's the best indicator of how GDP, or the gross national income, think of the national income, is growing over the course of a year before that statistic is available. And this is where it is as for the year 2023. You can see it's a 5-year You can see we had problems like everybody else did during COVID. But on the right-hand side up at the top, yeah, it did fall, didn't it, in November? But see what it did in December. That wasn't predicted, but that's what happened. The growth rate for that year is yet, the GDP growth rate is not yet formalized. It's been said it's going to be, well, it's going to be in the neighborhood of 7%. That's a pretty safe bet, but that will come. Now, recently, Fitch, which is one of three agencies that set credit ratings for national governments, Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's. They have had us on the investment grade level for several years now. We rose to that level in the early years when I came back in 2004, 5, 6, in that period. Now, Fitch has dropped us down off that level. Well, you'd have thought the world had come to an end. A lot of people are not familiar with what's going on in this sort of thing. It isn't exactly what you think it is. They are quite right in being critical. We understand it. I sat down and read what they had to say. They predict a 1.5% growth rate for this year. It's possible, despite the fact that most people have at least 2.5%. This is because of the two things, basically. It's the loss of the income from the mine, and secondly, much more importantly, water. It's the canal. What about the canal? And this was brought up time and time again. Many people have the opinion or the belief that, without knowing, that a country is either investment grade or it isn't. There are two ways to be. Guys, there are 20 plus levels in this characterization of the investment grade or speculative grade of a nation. And we just happen to be on the wrong side of that. Right, the middle point is where we were, just above it. Now we're just below it with one company. We have been warned by the others that they will have to be looking at us. We're being warned for good reason. And that is, I did have a cutback in our income. We know that, and we have the challenges from the canal, and no guarantee that the canal is going, and so on, is going to provide a lot of funds for us. And it's meant to catch the attention of the politicians running for office now. They are being told, basically, watch your step and do it right, because nobody really wants this country to fail. Remember, the overwhelming majority of Latin American countries are below us. Costa Rica is 2-3 levels below us in terms of their credit rating. We're stable. People have a great deal of faith in us. So despite all this is going on, one person wrote and said they were concerned that companies might flee Panama because of this change. Oh, come on, no, not even close. Not at all. If they ran back and forth every time Fitch or anybody else changed their credit rating by a little bit, by one level to another, they'd be running in circles most of their lives. You don't run a business that way. In fact, the World Bank is moving its regional offices down here. The International Fund for Agricultural Development is moving its offices down here. INCAI, one of Latin America's premier business schools, has made the decision to shift much of its campus out of Nicaragua, understandably, and down here. We haven't had any firms leaving that I'm aware of. It's, if you needed an excuse to do it, now I heard you got one, but it's not happening. We're very calm, and the business community is steaming right along. So the real question in many people's minds, and I think the one that is going to really catch the attention and keep it over the next few months, is water. And if you're familiar with it, and you may be, they are predicting that La Nina, which is the reverse of El Nino, which is what brought us the problems to begin with in the last couple of years, to one of the driest rainy seasons in our history. Now we are facing La Nina, and it's going to be ferocious. That's what we're told, and nothing's changed in that. That's been considered likely since around February. Well, it's even considered more likely now. It will probably be the worst hurricane year in a long time, and I mean by big numbers here. Very powerful hurricanes. You say, how could that possibly be helpful to us? Well, most of our reservoirs that provide the water to the canal, which is functioning, you just keep in mind, the canal is not shut down, it just doesn't have enough water to run the 36 to 38 passages each day from one side of the ocean to the other that it normally does. It's been down around 22 and so on. It's been limited because of the water situation. Well, fine. The reservoirs need to be raised. They're going to be raised. If we have anything even remotely resembling the La Nina that we're promised, our water levels are going to be raised, and probably faster than we think, and we'll hope not too quickly. Because you see, what is a blessing to us is a disaster for most of Central America and the Caribbean. And that's the truth. We don't get hit directly in the face with hurricanes coming in out of the Caribbean. If you look at a map of Central America and the Caribbean, you'll see that Panama is at the bottom of a bowl. And on one side you'll have Colombia and Venezuela, on the other side you'll have Central America moving up north. North of the equator, hurricanes do not go south. So the hurricanes, however, come in from the Atlantic Ocean. They skirt right above Colombia and Venezuela and hit the islands up there and move right over us on their way. They either go directly west, northwest, or north. Very typically northwest or north. We do not get hit directly by it, and thank God, because if we did, it would be a disaster, okay? We're not really made for that. But we do have these gigantic storms, and the edges of them are powerful, and they will drop rain on us, a lot of it. And if we don't watch our step, we'll have flooding, and we'll feel like we've been hit by a hurricane, even though we haven't been. And that hurricane, even then, will probably not be as strong as it could be in another 2 weeks. But it is a danger and can kill people all around the Caribbean. And we would never want to say that it brought us good news that Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or Jamaica or any of these countries are going to get blasted away by some series of massive hurricanes. And that's a hideous thought. But we don't have any control over it. That's the thing about the climate. It doesn't care what you think or what I think or anybody else thinks at all. It does what it was produced to do. And it's a process. And all we can do is hang on and watch it and try to deal with it. So despite the fact that if it works this way, we're going to have some problems from it, but we're likely to benefit from this. It is not a joy. We love our neighbors too, Anyhow, enough on that, but that's coming down. Now, I've got links to a lot of the stuff that are going on below here, and you can see it. You can read them. They're in English, or they're translated by Google or whatever. They'll give you some more ideas if you haven't heard much about it. The canal itself has presented already its plan through 2030, which is $8.5 billion in Spanish terms. That's 8,500 million. That much, $8.5 billion, is a lot of money. But it's no surprise. And it's not just for the canal. The Canal Authority is also responsible for providing or seeing to the assistance in the providing of water for human consumption, and they have plans for that too. They don't run that, but they will operate some of the facilities that are being planned. They're the water people, and they're on top of it. So they're going to get the support they need. They got ignored the last 2, 3, 4 years when they were saying we need another reservoir. Trust me, we're getting another reservoir. Better that we'd done that 2 or 3 years ago, but oh boy, we're going to be getting another reservoir. So they're getting their way, so to speak, and never a moment too early. That's very useful. It's also, of course, generating work for people, which is all very nice too. At this point, and you will read this in the notes too, the canal expects to raise the number of passages from one side of the one ocean to the other from the low 20s to 32, and very close to what would be considered normal. And that would be on July, what do we got? June 1st is the target for that. And they'll keep right on going up as to they're back to normal if they can. They tend to be very conservative in these judgments, which is a wise thing. But clearly, this is the direction. So my attitude toward you, if you're really upset about the economy and so forth, we're the place that people still come from all over Latin America when they have trouble, and they're still coming. And Colombia, believe me, we still have them coming. By larger numbers, 4 or 5 times as many as has been the case per month in the past. It's nonstop. Needless to say, we've had many Venezuelans coming through, and we have Nicaraguans, but not quite as many. Costa Rica gets a number of them, but we have them, we certainly do, and we have them from everywhere else. We have them from Chile, Ecuador, oh yeah, Ecuador, Argentina. I mean, it's just amazing. And we don't care what their politics are as long as they stay clear of ours. And they don't attack each other and have fighting amongst themselves. That is completely unacceptable behavior, and such people, if they persist, will be deported no matter whether they've got a residency visa or not. They're out of the country. We don't put up with that, and we make that very clear. This is Panama. We don't do that. Now, you make a mistake a couple times there, all right, we'll talk to you. But there'll be a time, and it will, and it's happened. Okay, don't do that. If the idea ever crosses your mind. Come here and be ready to relax a little bit, to let some of the burden, if you carry one from your country, just slide off your shoulders and get into the way things go here. And don't get an infection. That's, I think, the best I can offer. Now, I'm coming back here in a few days, as I hope with the news that I've been working on for a while, but I haven't been able to finish because of the infection on this new project effort. So I wanted you to know about this. The part 2 is going to focus on this other one, how it relates to Panama, and brings you up to date completely. And I'm going to mention it in the Retirement Wave newsletter, a special one for each case, because it's important. It's important to me that you know you're part of this, you're part of the community. You don't pay for it, I don't accept money for it, but I do appreciate you, and I feel the least I can do is let you know. So thank you so very much after all this time, however many of you find me, who show up. We'll work together. We're going to make things happen. We're going to make our lives better. Thank you. See you next time.